Well, look, we need to thank Judge Mott for his careful and thorough review of the evidence, and obviously the verdict. We couldn't be happier, overjoyed. 15 years, it's hard to describe what that must have been like for Cal and his children here. So if you have questions, we'll be happy to chat about it.
Kyle, how does it feel after so long finally having your name cleared today?
Well, first I want to just thank a few people for, especially the people of Schoharie County who have welcomed us the last 2 years. They have been very, very good to us, especially the courthouse staff, the shop owners, the restaurant owners, the jurors from last year. Everybody's been really good to us. They've welcomed us, and we really appreciate that. I would like to also thank all those people that have stood by us, stood by me and the kids, and have supported us. There's too many names to give you, but really appreciate, those people who had their faith in me and believed in me and have stuck by me, even though it wasn't always pretty. Definitely want to thank my Aunt Mary and Uncle John Perticone for their help and support through all this. They took care of my kids for me while I was away. Definitely want to thank my dad. God bless him, 88 years old. If it wasn't for him, I don't think I would be here today. He stuck by me, and I really, really appreciate everything that he's done for us. And I definitely want to thank Bruce Barquette and his team, Donna Aldea and Aida Leisingring. They have for the last 3 or 4 years. They have tirelessly worked hard, and not just defending me, but attacking and going on the offensive and solving this case as much as we can at this point. And they left their families for months, and I really can't thank Bruce and Aida and Donna enough. I can tell you from experience, unfortunately, that Bruce Barquette has assembled one of the best criminal defense team and appellate teams in the state of New York, without question. Bruce is a very talented litigator in the courtroom, but he's also a very smart man, and he's smart enough to know that he doesn't have all the answers, and he's surrounded himself with some very, very good people.
That part is easy.
Were you surprised with the short announcement from the judge?
I was scared when he first came out, and the tone of his voice, and having heard that throughout the trial, and that not being a good result. When he first came out and started talking, I thought I was done, and I was numb. And then when he came back with the not guilty, I was just I was shocked. I was truly shocked.
Mr. Harris, what will you do now?
Where does your role end now? Does it end?
Look, today's a day to be pleased that the criminal case is over. But there are people, and they know who they are, that hunted Cal Harris for 15 years. Today, the hunted become the prey. So this is not over by a long shot. We've developed evidence. We have investigative leads that we are following up now. We have things that we want to do to try to figure out where Michelle is. The cause for celebration for Cal's freedom is there, but Michelle needs to come home. She needs to be found, and this is not over by any means. It's not over.
Well, obviously my children and I are grateful to have this chapter behind us. We can now finally move forward and make some plans in our lives as normal people do. But I can tell you, there will be no celebration at our house tonight. There are no winners in this case. Everybody loses. Michelle loses, her children lose, her father and brother and sister-in-law and nieces lose, the people of Tioga County lose, the taxpayers, the voters, the residents, the jurors, all those jurors that had to come into those 2 grand juries in those first 2 trials. They will soon enough find out just how bad they were lied to and deceived by those in charge. But there's no celebration. We're grateful to be in this, get our family back together again. know that we're going to be together going forward. We are very grateful, but there's no celebration here. There's no winners. This is a horrible, horrible, horrible display of abuse of power and corrupt conduct by the Tioga County District Attorney's Office and the New York State Police Troop C.
Cal, what do you think? Cal, what do you think happened to your wife?
Well, we presented the evidence about what we think happened. We really did. Some of it was allowed in finally, some of it was excluded, and some of it still lays out there. I think the person that's going to be most upset with this verdict, to be frank with you, is Stacey Stewart.
Cal, what's ahead for you now in the longer run, after tonight and the next night? What do you see in your life?
I think we're just going to get home and we're going to relax for once, and we're going to just settle in and start making plans. We haven't been on vacation in I don't know how many years together, so I would like for us to go away together as a family on vacation and just try to get back to the normal day-to-day routine of swing of things. And I really I can't think much beyond that at this point. As Bruce said, this case is not over. I'm not happy with the way this thing was handled, obviously, and we're looking for some kind of retribution and accountability for those that were responsible for where we are today.
Do you think the kids lost their childhood and you lost 15 years of your life?
No question. I missed some of the best years of my life as a parent. And I'll never get those years back. And it's a special time. Kids at that age, it's a special time, and they missed out, and it's been I've been ripped away from my kids 3 times now. 3 times I've been ripped away from my kids, and that's been hard.
They've stood by you continually through all of this. You thanked them a little bit earlier, but how much does it really mean to you to have them here day after day supporting you?
It means the world to me. If I don't have my kids, I don't have anything.
Do you feel a sense of validation, even attesting to your innocence, facing these charges that could have sent you to prison for the rest of your life? Now you stand here, acquitted in a court of law.
Well, what I'm looking forward to, and Bruce can speak on that more if he wants to, but what I'm looking forward to is there are things that we have that nobody else has in regards to what actually took place during this investigation, during this prosecution. And we are going to bring this case forward, and we are going to hold those people accountable. And all I have to say to the residents of Tioga County and anybody else out there who is questioning what's going on right now, wait till you see what we present going forward. It will be a shocking display of abuse of power and corrupt conduct that this area has never seen. It is truly despicable what took place. And I am so happy to be here now and know going forward that this evidence will be presented and it will more than clear my name and really expose what really went on behind the scenes from the Tioga County District Attorney's Office and the New York State Police Troop C.
Why do you think you were the target then? Why were you the target of the DA's office?
I was not.
That's something that, we can't know at this point in time, but there's no doubt from the evidence we just presented at the trial that the investigators said 2 months after Michelle disappeared that they didn't even consider the possibility that Cal was an innocent person that they were harassing. The last family vacation, the first family vacation he went on after Michelle disappeared was to Disney World with his kids. And when he came home, he was greeted by the state police literally just stalking him at the airport. And it's an incredible thing.
I can tell you why I was targeted. The lead investigator on this case, Sue Andrews Mulvey, her father used to work for me, and I fired him. That's why this investigation focused on me. She was never looking for Michelle. She was coming after me.
Do you ever see yourself working with the County District Attorney's Office with the evidence you got together? Do you ever see that? Maybe
Well, look, there were state police officers, I believe, that had second thoughts about this case, and I said it after the 3rd trial. I still think that's true. anybody with goodwill, we're an open book in terms of if they really want to investigate this, what we have, the interviews that we've done, the investigative leads that we have. If they want to follow up on it, the state police, they have a chance to right a wrong here. We'll happily cooperate with them. That doesn't change the fact that there really does need to be accountability for this prosecution. And look, I don't know how Cal has withstood this for 15 years. I just don't know how he did it.
Can we hear from Taylor or Kara, or how have you guys
we
withstood it?
have a
You
little
wanna talk?
announcement
Oh, yeah.
for Taylor.
Well,
Taylor?
Taylor got into Cornell today.
Yeah.
That's great
The
news.
first bit of good news. So,
Can we hear from one of you, Taylor or Kara or
You wanna say
Jenna
something,
or
Taylor?
Tanner?
Maybe later.
Don't be
Maybe
shy.
later. We just we appreciate all the hard work that the media put in this, and the attention that you've given it. And I think at this point we're just going to go relax. And again, there will be no celebrating on our end tonight. We are grateful to be here, but there are no winners. This was a horrible display on the part of those in charge, and just a horrible abuse of power.
Do you feel like you've been fairly portrayed in reporting?
No comment.
sometimes yes, sometimes not so much.
Depends
But-
on the year.
Yeah.
Chris, just to be clear, you're saying accountable, just in case I'm missing something, you plan on filing a lawsuit against those you believe are accountable. Is that
Look,
where you're going with this?
As I said, look, there were things that happened in this prosecution. Ms. Aldea and I are both former prosecutors. We have very good friends that work in DA's offices and law enforcement. I am the last person that would be anti-police or anti-law enforcement. In some ways, it's the core of our being. It's the first thing that I did when I went out of law school. Looking at this investigation and looking at the way it was conducted, not so much by Mr. Martin in the last couple of years, but by the prosecutor who preceded him, and the way the investigation was conducted really needs to be examined. And one of the first things I said in my summation was, if you want to know how wrongful convictions happen, look at this prosecution. You had very little evidence, you had a relentless pursuit, you had evidence that other people were involved that was ignored, and it became an article of faith that Cal did this, and evidence and logic got smashed against that article of faith. And that's not how criminal cases are supposed to be prosecuted. And if you don't hold people accountable in civil lawsuits, which is the only thing that's available to us, then they'll do it again and again and again. And not only will they do it, other people in other counties will do it. You can't allow this to happen to what almost happened to Cal. He almost lost his life, their children almost lost their dad to this. Thank God and thank Judge Mott that we finally put this to an end, the criminal prosecution. But yeah, the people that were responsible for this case, they need to be held accountable, and we intend to do that.
Let me ask a question. How big a part did Judge Malone's dissent in the appellate decision play a part in this going to the Court of Appeals and ultimately bringing you here to where
That's really inside baseball in the appellate courts. Donna can speak to that.
that's the reason it went to the Court of Appeals, right?
Well, obviously, the decision by the Court of Appeals is what granted Cal the new trial.
Okay.
That was trial number 3 that we did here before. We obtained a change of venue in large part because of the saturation in the media, which is how we wound up in Schoharie. So obviously, it was a process. And I think with each new trial, with each new proceeding, more investigation took place. I think the defense case certainly got refined. More people came forward because in large part of the publicity of the case, they gave us a lot of leads that we were able to use in this trial and finally get some of the third-party culpability case out and really develop the defense in a way that had not been done before. So it's certainly a process. That was a part of it.
Now, what kept you going? Coming in and out of this courtroom and dozens of other courtrooms hundreds of times. What kept you going to keeping you positive?
My 4 kids. That's all I kept fighting for. My 4 kids. Every day. I've been in and out, like I said, 3 times now. Jail, prison, whatever you want to call it. And for over a period of 4.5 years. And I averaged 17 hours a day in my cell. And I had 2 jobs. I kept busy. But the only thing I kept fighting for was those 4 kids at home. And I knew I was going to get back to them. I knew this wasn't right. And I knew it was going to take some time, unfortunately. And we got through it. And I think all of us are a little stronger for it. And but they robbed me of my right as a father to raise my kids, and they robbed my kids of the right to a good childhood. I don't know anybody who's a parent that can appreciate being ripped away from your kids 3 different times and having to go through that process. And I've said it before, I just felt like I was being kidnapped in broad daylight and no one could help me. I was helpless.
When did you know for sure that you were going to go with a bench trial? When did you know for sure that that was the decision?
Right after the hung jury last year is when I really started to think about it. And what drove me to that decision was having been through the first 3 and witnessing the conduct of Gerald Keene in the first 2 trials, and then Kirk Martin in the 3rd trial. The pattern was that they would say things and do things in the courtroom in front of the jury that they know they can't say and they know they can't do. And my defense teams would jump up and object, and the judge would admonish either Keene or Martin, and then he would direct the jury to strike what was just said or seen from your memory. And that was a pattern through all 3 trials. And obviously for me as a layperson, that doesn't work. Those jurors didn't forget that. They didn't, strike that from their mind. So I, at this point, having been through it 3 times, felt that it was a risk, but it was a risk, less of a risk than going with another jury and having them do it over again. There seems to be very little accountability in that courtroom. There are laws that are in place to make it supposed to be a fair trial, but those laws aren't followed and they're adhered to. So it's I think from my standpoint personally, I think one of the greatest hypocrisies in our country is our criminal justice system. There is nothing fair about it. There is nothing honorable about it.
Right on.
Old holds bar, nothing, there's no rules and nothing matters in that courtroom. And I think that's why the conviction rate in the United States is over 90%. The next closest country is Canada. Their conviction rate is 65%. So the numbers speak for themselves. You can't say it's a fair system and have a number like 90% conviction rate and have that be fair. That's just not a fair number. And I think the numbers speak for themselves.
Ahead of the 3rd trial, you guys opened up a tip line. Any of those tips received through that, did that help you lead to this 3rd-party culpability that you were arguing this time around? And will you continue to accept tips on that? As you said, Cal, this isn't over for you.
Yeah, the tip line is still open. I don't know it off the top of my head. But yes, we received some information from there that was helpful. But it really, we kind of outlined in the course of the trial what we did. We took the information, and rather than attack the messenger, like Kevin Tubbs, who is in many ways, the true unsung hero here, he came forward with information, and rather than attacking him, we took what he had to say and developed it and see where it went. And it led us to the 2 men in Texas that we believe were involved.
So is the theory that, Stacey Stewart, those 2 men in Texas, killed Michelle, or is there a solid theory you guys have?
It is not so much a theory. We have evidence that places Stewart with Michelle at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's, as I outlined during the course of the trial, it's inconceivable that Kevin Tubbs could have made up those facts and matched somebody that had a relationship with Michelle and that made all the incriminating statements he's made over the years and have that be a coincidence. It's not.
And his truck.
In his truck, exactly. I mean, it was just inconceivable. And if you remember, Joe Cawley testified, the first trial attorney, and he said that his theory was Brian Early was involved, which made sense given what he had. So when Tubbs came forward and said, well, no, I didn't see Brian Early in a red Jeep. I saw some other guy in a black pickup. Rather than brushing him aside, they investigated it, and ultimately it led to Cal's exoneration.
Do you have any thoughts on what it came down to then? I know the judge obviously didn't lay that out. But
In our view, we don't think this was close legally or factually. I don't think they made out a case. What we said was that when the 2 experts for the prosecution indicated they couldn't tell us when the blood was deposited, I literally leaned over and said, can we all go home now? Because that ends the possibility of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Then when we put on Kevin Tubbs, who testified well and credibly, I thought, can we go home now? And then we have the 3 women from Texas that added in pieces to it. And I thought, this is not close. They didn't have any evidence that Cal was involved in this at all, other than his wife, with whom the divorce was settled. It disappeared. That was it. Their version of this, she disappeared, you were getting divorced, therefore you must have done it. And there was never any evidence connecting those 2 things. The case was long on sympathy and short on evidence.
It should also be noted that throughout this case, that the District Attorney's Office and the New York State Police have gone out and threatened my witnesses, and in many cases scared off witnesses so they wouldn't come in and testify. And Kirk Martin just did it in this case with the witness that owns Stacey Stewart's old property. Kirk Martin personally called that witness and threatened him with his job if he didn't sign a fake affidavit stating that Cal Harris's defense team paid someone to plant the evidence at the burn pit. Kirk Martin made that phone call. So it just gives you an example.
Let's save some stuff.
Well,
I know. Let's save some stuff for later.
Was the testimony of Stan Drazin important, Cal's attorney? Is that important?
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
essentially he blew away a motive, it seemed to me.
I thought the 3rd trial we blew away the motive to a large extent because it was clear the case wasn't going to trial, and it was clear that Michelle was accepting the offer that Cal made. But Stan Drazin was spectacular in absolutely laying level the idea that this divorce case was the motive. The whole thing that they had going on, indicating that the divorce was imminent, that the tensions were mounting, was belied by his testimony and by the documents that he had, indicating that there was negotiations that had largely resolved themselves.
And when the evidence, you didn't get in the evidence from the farm, but specifically the pieces of fabric and the grouse wrap, that obviously didn't hurt you.
It was, Donna was saying, what's the difference between the blood that you can't date and the stuff in the burn pit which you can't date, right? So no, we couldn't for sure tell us when those items were there. But again, you look at probabilities and the possibility of coincidences. We had people telling us that they had burned bloody clothing in that pit. So rather than disregarding the evidence like the state police did, we went, well, let's go dig it up and see what we find. And sure enough, we find clothing that was obviously burned in the burn pit. It's just another piece of the puzzle. It didn't hurt us, but the judge ultimately excluded it.
Don't you think the timeline from the very beginning has been incorrect anyhow? I mean, the first trial, they came out with the theory of what happened at a time that was before what Kevin Thompson, and the timelines all the way through just didn't.
But no part of their case made sense because their timeline was built around the divorce. And then they ignored the fact that Michelle's van or vehicle had been parked at the end of the driveway in the early morning hours on other dates, clearly indicating that she had dropped off the van on other occasions. They ignored the fact that one person saw the gate closed at 4:30 in the morning, and by 6:30 in the morning the gate was opened. Something happened in there, and they just pretended that that evidence didn't exist.
Cal, is there a sense of closure of any kind? Now, obviously, the legal case is over criminal court, but is there a sense of closure?
Not until we find Michelle. Not until we find the mother of my children. And we get those answers. There won't be closure. And we should have those answers. There's no reason that we shouldn't. This isn't a mystery. It just wasn't handled properly. And like I said, the lead investigator from the state police, Sue Andrews Mulvey, she wasn't looking for Michelle. She was coming after me to get even with me for firing her father, who worked for me. That's
really,
my belief to the day I die. There's no question in my mind.
It really is interesting that you had that conflict as well as Gerald Keene's wife was representing Michelle in the divorce. I mean, in most places, that would be a disqualifying fact. For Keene being the prosecutor, they would have appointed a special prosecutor. So, all right.
Do you envision that those who you believe are targeting you are going to take another legal step, perhaps a civil case?
There's nothing else they can do. One of the benefits of our system is not guilty ends all pursuit of the person that was accused. They can't sue Cal. Nobody can come after Cal. The only thing they can do is hopefully take the evidence that we have and more evidence that we're willing to give them and investigate the case for real for the first time. And they're going to have to answer themselves in civil court for their conduct.
Now, you said right before the verdict came you felt scared. What went through your mind when you heard those words, not guilty, said by the judge?
I was numb at that point because when he came out and the look on his face and the tone of his voice, I thought I was done. I'd heard that, I'd seen him and heard him throughout the trial, and whenever he was in that tone, whatever decision he made didn't go well for me. And when he came out with that look on his face and that tone, I just put my head down. I went numb. I went numb. I didn't hear anything after that. So.
We're good.
What about the cheers
Thanks.
coming from your family?